Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here with our weekly Cyber Report sponsored by Northrop Grumman, and it's our honor to have with us Donna Dodson, who is a senior advisor now with the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, NIST. You were the former director of the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence over there at NIST until last Friday, so congratulations on the next step in the rest of your life and career, and you've been a cyber professional since 1987, which I think is worth shouting out. So you were basically doing cyber before we were actually even calling it cyber at that point. Talk to us a little bit. This was a fascinating discussion here with Jim Lewis of Center for Strategic and International Studies, talking about cyber interoperability. Talk to us a little bit about cyber interoperability, because the notion of it being just on a national security side, right? The CMMC, the new cyber standards have gone on in DoD, but the question is whether or not you can actually get that kind of interoperability, given you have to have it over on the national security framework, the national economic framework, the computer industry, medical, I mean, you name it, all of these are sort of interlinked. So what are the keys to getting that kind of interoperability we need from a security perspective?
So from a cybersecurity perspective, if you would have talked about interoperability 5 and 10 years ago, it would have been about the bits going across the network and are they interoperable? Can you send and receive them? However, our work at NIST, particularly with the Cybersecurity Framework, helped demonstrate that real interoperability is about people, process, and technology. It's about understanding outcomes that you're looking for, bringing good business practices, good cybersecurity practices together to think about what kind of outcomes you need to achieve, how you can do that with your partners, your vendors, how you can do that within your organization. All of these pieces need to come together, including the technical interoperability, to help us get there and truly have interoperability in cyberspace.
And how are we doing right now, right? I mean, if you were going to grade where we are on interoperability, I know Michael Daniels of the Cybersecurity Alliance, who was President Obama's cyber director, or the cyber czar, as he was referred to, said, look, we're still early in this. And, certainly the internet as we know it, about 25 years. But, how would you gauge where we are on an interoperability standpoint, particularly for the national security enterprise that prides itself on being maybe ahead of the power curve, but then has a whole series of other challenges that it has in part because of massive infrastructures that already exist?
So organizations across the United States, large and small, are thinking about cybersecurity. They are thinking about good risk management, good cybersecurity risk management as part of their organization's risk management structure. That goes a long way to get us where we need to be. We still have more work to do. We have more work to do because, frankly, as we discussed earlier today, we have technology in all aspects of our lives. We need to have that kind of interoperability from the organization, from different business units, all the way down to the bits and the bytes. So that's a pretty big space to straddle. So yes, there is more work to do, but we are taking a look at this and thinking to ourselves, how can we have better outcomes? How can we achieve a strong cybersecurity posture that's commensurate with the risk that we understand that we have? So Michael's group has done a lot of work in the threat space and understanding those threats. We can understand vulnerabilities. We can also look at cybersecurity from a life cycle perspective. That's the development of code, that's using open source code, understanding how security was considered when that was developed, all the way through the life cycle of both software and, as I mentioned earlier today, we also have to think about hardware when we think about interoperability and a strong security posture.
And as you also mentioned, right, firmware is also equally critical, right? So you have to have all three of those people parts, software, firmware, as well as on the hardware side. Let's talk about the lexicon. You know, one of the things when you were putting together this cybersecurity framework, Jim Lewis's advice to you was make it less than 10 pages and really understandable and talk in English. You've been an advocate of that as well, because in the cyber world, you very rapidly fall into acronyms and people start to talk about things that the regular people don't really understand. Talk to us about the lexicon we need to use. Every professional community has a common vocabulary they use to describe threats, problems. There's been enormous progress over the past decade on that, with whether common architectures or threat understanding, the work that MITRE has done, so that everybody has sort of a benchmarked idea of threats. Talk to us about the importance of the lexicon, because if you're using the wrong terminology, even the most trained professional doesn't really understand what's being said.
So, cybersecurity used to always be just about the technology and not about the people, process, and technology. It was not a discussion that was held in boardrooms. And again, the community came together to develop the Cybersecurity Framework, which gave a lexicon for both discussions in boardrooms and discussions between vendors and suppliers, etc. And that's a critically important piece to solving some of our cybersecurity challenges. So at the boardroom level, they can ask good questions to understand their cybersecurity posture without knowing about the advanced encryption standard or quantum-resistant cryptography, two areas that I love to talk about, but they're not appropriate always from a business perspective.
Donna Dodson of the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, Senior Advisor there, but the former Director of NIST's Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Thanks very much, and best of luck in whatever you do next.
Thank you very much.